Make the choice to begin anywhere in your life, and the journey has started. And along the way, be inspired. Listen to the stories by joining the president of Howard University, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, on The Journey.
After graduating from Howard University with a bachelor's in fine arts, my guest today went on to become a legendary actress and stage director. In 2021, she returned to Alma Mater to help establish a strong foundation for the newly re-established College of Fine Arts. She's answering the highest calling of Howard alumni to ensure the next generation of students receives the same robust educational experience that she benefited from throughout her illustrious career. Hello, my name is Dr. Wayne Frederick, and my guest today on The Journey is Phylicia Rashad, Dean of Howard University's Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts. Dean Rashad, welcome to The Journey.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start where it all began. You grew up in Texas and Mexico. I spent a little bit of time in Houston myself. So why don't you tell us what that experience was like, living between Texas and Mexico?
Well, I was born in Houston, Texas, and when I was 13 years old, and this is after 13 years of life in which I traveled from Texas to South Carolina to Louisiana, the birthplaces of my parents. Right. One day at 13, when I was 13, my mother, Vivian Ayers, who was a poet and a scholar, said, "I've had it. I've had enough of this environment. We're moving." And we looked at her and we said, "Okay, Mom, where are we going?" She said, "We're going to Mexico City." I looked at her and I thought, we don't know anybody in Mexico City. And it didn't matter because my mother was adventurous. She was that kind of person. Right. When we were, and she said, "And we're going to go on the bus. We're taking the Greyhound bus because I want you to have the flavor of the country. I want you to meet the people. I want you to see the terrain as we're traveling through." And we're looking at her like. So we started our journey in the evening, and when we woke up in the morning, we were across the border. And slowly but surely, the terrain began to change. It was very flat in Texas in the area we were in. But as we progressed into Mexico, there were hills that turned into mountains so high, I thought they were clouds. And then comes that part where you go over the mountain, and you look down and you see Mexico City sprawled before you. We arrived at night, so the streets were all lit, and you saw the little lights glittering. I didn't know a soul. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. It was personally for me, it was a lonely time because I didn't have friends. I sat in classrooms where I didn't speak the language. I had been a straight A student prior to going, and there I sat in a classroom, and my teacher, the teachers, I think they thought me rather inept because I didn't know the language. Mm-hmm. And I would remember their experience when I returned, and I looked at students from different places who didn't speak English. Yeah. And it didn't mean that they were inept. Yeah. It meant they didn't know the language. It taught me many things. It taught me an appreciation for ancient culture and civilization that's not my own. Appreciation for people who are very different from me. There's not just one Mexican culture, there are several. Many, as a matter of fact. Dialects, yes, all of this, rich in culture, rich in history, so adept in science and math. All you have to do is visit the pyramids. You see that this is true. I loved it, and when I came back, my friends even said I had a slight Spanish accent, which I thought was very funny because I didn't speak Spanish, but you know.
They had to give you some ribbing for something.
Yeah, but it informed me that the world was a big place. Yeah. And segregation didn't exist everywhere. And the color of our skin was very much appreciated. It was admired, as a matter of fact. And I didn't quite always understand it because they'd look at me and say, "Ay, negrita, negrita." And I thought, well, wait a minute now. And so And someone said, "No, it's a compliment." Yeah. There's a compliment, you know. Yeah. I learned many things. It was great. Then returning, you know, it was time to complete high school and time to get ready to go to college.
Right. So your mom, as you mentioned, was a poet and a scholar, and your dad was a dentist. As a matter of fact, a Howard-trained dentist. And what influence you think they had on your college choice, as well as the career choice that you would make?
Well, it was obvious from the time that I was 11 that I would be an actress. Where would I go to college? Because it was also obvious that I was going to college. Yes, you're going to college, and you're going to graduate, and that's, you know, but that was what I expected to do.
Right.
My father was very influential because he had spoken to me about Howard University all through my childhood. And the lake so blue. and the professors that he had, his classmates, he talked about it. I felt like I knew it on some level. And when it came to apply, he said, you can apply anywhere you want, but darling, you're going to Howard. And he was so right. He had shown me articles on the Howard University players where they had been sponsored by the State Department and traveled to Europe. Visits of famous artists who came here. He made the right choice. Right. It was good. The training was robust. I learned within my first weeks that there were going to be a number of parties that I would never go to because I was going to be in the department, it was called the Department of Drama then,
right.
Working.
So it's interesting because, and I think I've mentioned this to you and your sister, Debbie Allen, that I have now met several very well accomplished black women whose fathers are all graduates of the dental school so, or the medical school in a couple of circumstances, but that includes Valerie Jarrett. It includes Ken Chenault's wife as well. It includes Edith Cooper from Goldman Sachs. I mean, the number of black women whose fathers went to Howard Dental School is pretty amazing. So that's for another episode. I'm gonna have to come back and examine that. But looking at your experience at Howard, I think while we were making our way here, we ran into a student who told you he was an actor. That's how he introduced himself. But he's a biology major with a minor in chemistry. And I have to admit, prior to getting to hear your story so in-depthly a few years ago, I probably would have looked at that and been a little bit curious. But I remember talking to you once, and you were talking to me about the fact that while acting and that aspect of what you did was critical, a big part of your training was the rest of the stuff, learning about history and about English literature. And so talk about what about that experience in terms of that academic rigor you experienced in your undergrad experience here at Howard informs your acting.
Absolutely. Oh, intellectual inquiry, an expansion of the intellect. It's very important in an acting career. It isn't just displaying oneself. That's not what acting is. It's really understanding people, yes, periods, yes, modes of behavior, different cultures, civilizations. But you don't know those things if you don't study them. And I had wonderful study here. I studied psychology. I studied French. I studied philosophy with Dr. Banner. I studied literature with Sterling Brown. I studied Greek drama with Dr. Snowden. I had a full college experience, and I relished it all.
So in my naive and very inexperienced mind about this topic, I look at movies very differently to plays, very differently to TV series. I feel like you have an opportunity to mold and evolve a character in a TV series. In a play, every night for weeks you have an opportunity to add something just a little different. In a movie, it's like one take, that's it right there, and it's kind of stuck for however long as you see that movie. Now, you may look at a movie based on your own experiences and see something different every time.
Yeah.
But the reality is that first time you see it, and many of us may see a movie once and it kind of hits you and you walk away. So just to walk through those three different, you know, I think ways that you have played actors. So let's start with Claire Huxtable. When you first read that script or you first started playing that character to when you ended, what about that character, especially the influence it was having on Black America at the time, and I would say America in general? What about it you saw initially that wasn't there near the end, and how did that evolve in terms of your mind's eye?
When I received the script to audition, I thought, who was hiding in my closet? It was a conversation between Claire and Theo, in which he was reprimanding him for not doing his homework properly. And I said, somebody's been hiding in my closet. My son was 10 years old at the time, and I had just had that conversation. It's beautiful the way the characters build and unfold over time, very naturally, through the stories that are told every week, through interacting with the other players. There's something that's very organic that begins to happen. And then all of a sudden, even when we came together in the beginning, we were like family, but it really does grow. That's the only way I can explain it. It really does grow. And it's not just with the actors. There's an entire industry that the audience doesn't see. The audience doesn't see the cameraman. It doesn't see the stage manager. It doesn't see the wardrobe supervisor. It doesn't see the people who supervise the set. But all of these people are involved in this production that you see. All of these people contribute to what makes you like it or not, you know.
Yep. So now you understand how I feel about the folks here, Ms.
Oh,
Drake,
yes,
and
I
the
understand.
team, right?
I understand.
So let's go to the stage. You once invited me to see a play you were in which you were the only actress, only person, I should say, in the play.
At one point, yeah, towards the end, yeah.
I was extremely skeptical. I was like, this must be difficult, being on there by yourself, all the attention. It seems like there's no opportunity to make an error, to not, get it just right. How different was that, I think, from all the other things that you think you've done, and how difficult it is to pull off something like that?
This script was Head of Passes, written by Terrell Alvin McCraney. And he's so specific in his writing. He even writes the breath that the character takes, the ha. He writes that in the script, and it's exact, and you need to get that exact, otherwise you're not going to be that person. So that was one thing. But that conversation that you saw, this is a woman who has lost, it's written as somewhat an adaptation of the book of Job. The woman loses all 3 children in one night. And this is a woman who's been faithful. She's been so faithful, and she doesn't understand it. And she is she's angry and confused. She's ranting at God one moment, almost losing it, and then bringing herself back. And then she faces the reality that her children are gone. She's praying for God to revive them. She says, I know you can do it, because you can do anything. And nothing happens. And the storm that was raging outside continues. And in the end, she's in a living room that's flooded with water. The difficulty was mastery of the script, because it was so specific. There's no room for ad-libbing. There's no room for dropping a line. This is like August Wilson. This is like Shakespeare. This is like the Greeks. You got to be exact. You got to be exact. And I have to say, it was very demanding physically and emotionally, and so rewarding. This is the kind of thing an actor longs for. I used to wonder, would I ever, 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 ever have a role like that?
Well, I'm glad I saw it, because it totally blew my mind. I was thinking to myself, this is not something that I could pull off in 1,000 years, be that disciplined, because I could see that energy, as well. Skeleton Crew, for which you won a Tony Award. I also got a chance to see you in that as well. Very different. Again, anything I've seen you do. But I think it did something that I've also heard you talk about, which is what I believe universities are here for in general, which is to amplify other people's humanity. And I felt like that in watching it, it was so real and so relatable in so many ways to just about everybody in the audience. I could feel the energy of everybody around me, they could pick one of those characters and say, that's my Uncle Joe, or that's my Aunt Nellie, or whoever in it. And so, you know, tell me a little bit about Skeleton Crew. While you got a Tony Award for it, it probably was something very different from what you've done before.
It was very different from anything I've ever done before. Skeleton Crew, written by Dominique Morisseau, is a story of workers in the auto factory, in the auto industry. They work in the stamping plant, and their plant is about to be closed down. And it's what happens, it's really the largesse of that story told through the stories of just a few people who share this workroom together, who come in and share space, and they've known each other for years and how they interact and respond. And each one of them has a different story. And you're right, people did relate to all of them as someone that they knew. Even people from foreign nations did that. And I said, okay, that's a true testament. We're doing our job. We're all right. You know, we're doing the thing. That she was a very different character from anyone I've ever played. And yet there's something, and this is what I see all the time through the characters that I play, that truthfully speaking, people are much more alike than we could ever be different. Her outer circumstances were what they were, but at the heart of it all, she was lonely. She was a lonely woman with all her bravado and all her strength and all her sway. She was lonely. She had no contact with her son because of her sexual identity as a lesbian, and what he would not abide his children being exposed to, even though this is the mother who reared him. That was very hurtful. She played things like that off, you know. She was a real human being. I love that woman.
She even smoked.
She smoked, and she had a little potty mouth. I remember I told you before you came, I said, Dr. Frederick, this is not going to be a polite play.
And you warned me. I appreciate that. So who were your primary mentors as a Howard student as it relates to acting? And what are some of the lessons you got from them during your process that you still take with you today?
Well, my first acting instructor was James Butcher. And he was very calm and very reserved. And he would call us by our last names and address us as Miss or Mr. And he seemed very aloof and very distant, but he loved us all so very, very much. Discipline. 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 The next acting instructor was Gretchen Gordon. She was a woman that was kind of difficult to take to because we couldn't quite get a feel for her until one day, two of the students in the class performed a scene. It was an improv, something that they had developed. The father was played by the actor who was shorter, and the son was played by the actor who was very tall. And the incident is that the son was wetting his pants. He was grown and he was wetting his pants. And they made fun of it. And he was kind of slow, you know, kind of slow-witted. And they played it like a comedy. And she sat there and she watched them play that scene. And then she revealed to us that she had a son who was mentally retarded and that there was nothing funny about it. We had to get our sensibilities straight. And after she gave that critique, she talked about a famous person whose name I will not mention, who made a whole career of making fun of people who spoke a lisp, or who spoke differently, or who were kind of slow-witted. He made a whole career. He became famous. He was a giant. He made a lot of money. And she let us have it about what that meant to people who really lived with this condition, or people who loved people with this condition.
Obviously, there's a lot that attracts you back here. And, you know, for me, as you know, I plotted my little scheme to get you and Chadwick Boseman in the same room together in LA. We had a nice dinner, and each of you had an assignment.
Yes.
And I was to convince the other one to join my project.
Yes.
To bring the College of Fine Arts back. And so, you know, that worked well. But in your own words, what's your attraction for being back here in this role? Why was it so important to you to participate in this renaissance, as it were?
There is that which is professional and that which is very personal. I had been invited to serve on the board of trustees, and in the first meeting, what was happening was taking apart the College of Fine Arts that had full accreditation in each department because the disciplines were not understood and valued in terms of academia. I couldn't believe that was happening. I couldn't believe that I was invited to a board and that was on the agenda, and that I was expected to vote in agreement with it. I couldn't believe it, because having been a fine arts student, I know what the level of work is. I know what the discipline is. I know the interdisciplinary aspects of it, and I know the academic disciplines that are inherent in all the arts. I mean, in all the arts. People don't usually think this way, and usually artists don't speak this way, but it is the truth. I was brokenhearted by that, but I still continued to come back to Howard. I was invited to come and do master lectures, and I would do that. And once I taught for a full semester as an adjunct faculty, doing master lectures, and I loved it. Coming back to Howard, and I really did debate about it. You know I had to debate about this.
Absolutely.
I had friends in academia who said, don't do it. You'll be sorry. Don't do it. And I thought, no, I want to do it. I want to do it because I want to see this college not only brought back, but moved forward. I want to see where the young people are and how they fare. I want to see if I can support faculty in educating and training this next generation of artists. And I love Howard University. And I want to go back in there and walk those grounds again. You know, every time I come on campus and I walk in at 12 o'clock and at 6 o'clock, when the bell rings and the Alma Mater plays, you know, I thought, well, we didn't have that, or we should have had that. But the feeling, there's so many things that have changed. Yes, it's years later. Yes, there's so many things that have changed. But there's so much that's the same. There's spirit here at Howard University. It is not just brick and mortar. It is not just policies and procedures. There is spirit here because of what this university has meant to our people and to the world.
And so on that note, I'm going to close with talking about spirit. I remember when I first told you I was going to propose changing the name of the college to the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts. I remember how supportive you were. Why do you think that was important, and what do you think Howard students get today that's probably different or so important that they should be coming to the Chadwick Boseman College of Fine Arts to get their degree and education?
The name or the word that you put on a thing carries vibration. You know about that experiment this Japanese person had done, putting words underneath a glass of water and then taking drops of water and examining them under a microscope? And depending on what the word was, the drop of water was, the crystals it formed were beautiful or deformed. Chadwick A. Boseman, that name, what does that mean? That means excellence to me. I knew him as a student. Before it was just the College of Fine Arts, but now it's the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts. That's a new energy. That's a real call and champion to excellence. And it's happening every single day in every single department. The students are on fire. The faculty is there, so strong and supportive for students. Opportunities are emerging day after day after day. Today we announced we launched a new initiative, the Walt Disney Company Storytellers Fund. And this is to promote collaboration between students in the College of Fine Arts and students in the School of Communications to come together and collaborate and create ideas for production. And this fund will fund it. I mean, where else does that happen? Tell me, where is that happening? It's happening at Howard.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks for being here. My guest today was Phylicia Rashad, Dean of Howard University's Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts. I'm Dr. Wayne Frederick. Please join me next time on The Journey.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at whut.org. Thank you.